Good morning. I'm pleased to kick off today's human performance track. Thank you to the team from Capital Factory who have been working behind the scenes to pull off this virtual event. Despite the challenges we are facing due to COVID-19, technology is allowing the nation to be together. We are fortunate to be working in an era where we can rapidly develop cutting-edge technology and field state-of-the-art solutions in order to advance industry, as well as our focus at the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command, military medical care. In our field, not only do these solutions increase force lethality, but they also promote warfighter health and critically save lives. I can't think of a more important mission, and I'm proud to be a part of it. At the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command, or Mrdc, we focus on acquiring, creating, developing, and delivering medical capabilities for our warfighters. We can achieve this because, in addition to Mrdc being a subordinate command within the Army Futures Command, we also have authorities across the Department of Defense in partnerships with other federal agencies, industries, academic institutions, and allies. In fact, it's our business model to partner with these groups in order to research and develop medical solutions for current and future military threats. We have a worldwide footprint with 8 commands that literally work around the clock in support of the Army Futures Command and MRDC's mission. At MRDC, our major portfolios are military infectious disease research, combat casualty care, military medicine and clinical and rehabilitative medicine, medical simulation and information sciences, and medical, chemical, biological defense research. We are the only organization within the Department of Defense solely focused on research and development to address the military's unique medical requirements. Currently, our capabilities are supporting the whole of government response to COVID-19. Our researchers and scientists are using all of our assets to develop countermeasures to prevent, detect, and treat this virus. The team at our U.S. Army Institute of Infectious Diseases has been safely replicating the virus to support countermeasure development, while the researchers and scientists at our Walter Reed Army Institute of Research have designed a unique COVID-19 candidate. And at our U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, the workforce is evaluating the use of wearable systems to detect key early COVID-19 symptoms and to monitor body temperature. Dr. Mark Buller, who developed the algorithm behind this technology, will be joining the conversation once I conclude my remarks. In addition to using our capabilities to support COVID-19 efforts, our assets ensure that we have the most lethal military in the world. So before I dive deeper into these topics, I want to set the strategic stage. As a military, it's no longer business as usual. We must work hard to ensure that we train and equip our soldiers in a modern way, a different way, different than what we have done during the past 18 years of sustained conflict. Our national security strategy is calling on us to defeat one enemy in a large combat operation, while at the same time deterring the efforts of another adversary in a large combat operation. And oh, by the way, at the same time, we're not going to stop our current efforts in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. And you better believe that we are not going to take our foot off the gas for one moment when it comes to protecting the homeland. This broad-ranging mission is a pretty tall order, yet we are up to it. I can tell you that I don't think we've had a clear direction during my 3 decades of service, a direction which keeps everyone nested, everyone in the entire military focused on unified goals. We're taking new measures in the military to ensure that our acquisition processes are streamlined. It simply takes too darn long right now to turn an idea into a product, then get that product made and sent to the field. It's very important that we are able to take the measures to ensure that we are getting products into the hands of the warfighters when they need them. And we have to be predictive in nature. In short, we must determine what we need before we need it. For those businesses who want to work with us, it's important to understand how life in the military is unique. More specialized preparations are required. Service members are exposed to diverse environmental and war-related threats, such as blast injuries or infectious diseases that are not common in the United States. In addition, they face threats to daily living and performance, such as sleep loss, reduced caloric intake, muscle wasting, elevated stress, hormonal decline, and environmental factors like heat, cold, and altitude. Well, it's our job to help the nation stay ahead by minimizing threats and maximizing human potential. I am proud that Mrdc has been asked to lead the Army's overall efforts in maximizing human potential for our future operational environment, bringing together and focusing the efforts of all the elements of the Army enterprise who are involved in human and system potential and performance. Our goal at hand is to identify and synchronize key tasks and investments that will enable soldiers, leaders, and teams to operate at peak cognitive, physical, and emotional potential in order to dominate and win in multi-domain operations. We will execute this by first developing a guiding document that defines the human level demands and requirements, the design of U.S. Army soldiers, leaders, and teams of future operational force. This document will give us the right trajectory as we discover new ways to optimize health and enhance human performance of individuals as they interact with the complex environments of the future. It's also important to remember that it's not the individual soldier that wins wars. It's our military's teams and formations that do. In the future, we believe that our soldiers will be asked at increasing rates to not only work in human teams and use technology, but also to work with technology and machines as part of a human system team. So part of our effort must focus on optimizing those human-machine teams, not only humans operating their vehicles and equipment, but also humans that are teaming with collections of machines of different capabilities and levels of independence. Finally, our Army team has included a line of effort that is focused on optimizing talent management to assure that we can find the right people for the right jobs and help train and develop them to optimize their individual potential throughout their entire careers. This effort to maximize human potential is essential as we plan for future multi-domain operations. To this end, Mrdc is accelerating our investments in technologies that maximize the physical, mental, and behavioral aspects of warfighter health. As an example, tools that allow soldiers and leaders to manage work-rest cycles that minimize injury risks are currently in high demand. Current work-rest cycle innovations focus on sleep loss, which threatens effectiveness, safety, and health. In the deployed environment, the average soldier gets less than 6 hours of sleep at night. The recommendation is 7 to 8 hours. This sleep loss is often unavoidable due to continuous or sustained operations. To help close the gap and to promote performance, we're working on both near and far-term solutions. A near-term solution is the 2B Alert tool, which is a mobile app that acts as a decision-making tool for commanders. Think of it as a comprehensive one-stop solution for planning operations so soldiers can have the highest degree of mental capacity. The app works by using machine learning algorithms to progressively adapt to how each soldier responds to sleep deprivation. It's the first ever mobile application to do this. It uses this information to generate accurate and individualized recommendations for each soldier as to when to rest or when to stimulate with. For example, caffeine, so they will reach peak alertness at the desired time of day. 2B Alert is currently available on iOS and Android operating platforms. We are also currently developing similar artificial intelligence algorithms that will recommend when sleep is needed to optimize alertness during wakefulness. Sleep management and mental abilities are crucial now, as well as in future multi-domain operations. As we focus on 2035 and beyond, we will continue to bridge this performance gap. One such future technology we are exploring is the closed-loop transcranial electrical stimulation for enhancement of sleep quality. This sleep solution, which can be described as a sleep cap, will provide brain stimulation to enhance the effects of sleep on memory and performance. The device will record brain waves and then provide stimulation when needed during the different stages of sleep. We are currently testing this technology to establish guidelines for use to enhance soldier sleep with effects on memory and cognitive performance. To Be Alert and the Sleep Cap will be valuable decision tools for leaders. The data is predictive, which aids soldier performance and readiness. Future operations will place unusually high intellectual, physical, psychological, and emotional demands on service members. Dense urban environments could mean small groups are isolated for long periods of time, which means warfighters will need to be more alert and aware. They will need to digest more information more rapidly and make quicker decisions. Therefore, optimal body performance, cognitive enhancement, and improved nutrition are areas of focus. An example of our investment includes physiological sensors that can help determine soldier capability. This wearable technology can sense the environment and output algorithms that predict consequences of environmental conditions on soldier performance. This is extremely beneficial in environments affected by extreme heat or cold. Leaders will use these decision aids to help keep the forces militarily ready, making sure everyone is able to perform tasks at their optimal level. Mrdc is also developing a personalized predictive decision aid architecture, a fatigue and attention management system. It currently uses a 3-minute reaction time test performed during different times of the day as input for algorithms that predict cognitive capacity and mental acuity for up to 48 hours. The results can tell leaders how well a soldier can stay mentally alert and mission ready. For all performance-enhancing technologies, it's important to find ways to miniaturize and ruggedize solutions so that they can weather various environments and can be easily transported, stored, or carried. For this reason, sensors and wearables are technologies that are frequently being explored. We need efficiency incorporated with ingenuity so we can meet the demands of the current operational environment as well as the future force. Our programs are successful because we partner with other businesses, agencies, and institutions. We rely on collaboration, and we nurture the entrepreneurial spirit. It's through small business partnerships and contracts that we can reach our goals more efficiently. The business community helps us to fulfill our role as a leader of medical research and development, which in the end contributes to our national security. Innovators should consider creating solutions that have dual purposes between the military and the civilian market. In the human performance realm, there are many industries where workers have highly physically straining jobs similar to Department of Defense positions. For example, there are DoD employees who move munitions, which involves continuous lifting and moving. There are similar physically demanding jobs in factories and assembly lines that can benefit from exoskeletons or other enhancements. At Mrdc, we focus on agility so we can develop and deliver our products to the field quickly. We seek partners with the technical savvy and ingenuity to innovate solutions so we can take it to the next level. We need cutting-edge human performance advances to maintain and sustain the Army's primary weapon platform and the greatest asset available to the military, and that's the warfighter. I'd like to conclude by answering the question as to how businesses can work with MRDC. Our website, mrdc.amed.army.mil, has 4 programs listed at the bottom of our homepage. The first is for those who want to submit a research proposal. The second is for our medical technology transfer. The third is for those who have a new product or idea. And the fourth takes you to our Office of Small Business Programs. The partnership that we develop with companies often result in formal business agreements such as grants, contracts, licenses, and cooperative research and development agreements, or CRADAs. Businesses who offer innovative ideas that complement our work are always an asset. Technology that is designed to optimize individuals as they interact with relevant military environments, or that optimizes the human-machine team to operate at peak potential, is of great interest. We seek your help to create the best solutions to optimize human potential. For a deeper dive into specific programs, 2 MRDC scientists will be sharing their programs' innovative technologies. Please stand by for Dr. Mark Buller, Principal Investigator with the Biophysics and Biomedical Modeling Division of our Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, and Matt Quinn. He's our Science Director for Telemedicine and Advanced Technology Research Center. Thank you very much, and forge the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much to General Talley, and also thank you to Dr. Stokes for her opening remarks. With that, I would like to bring to the stage Dr. Mark Buller, Principal Investigator, U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to talk about the technology that we have that we're working with soldiers, both in the U.S. and with NATO allies. So I'm going to show you a few slides here that will help to motivate the problem. And let's see, here we go. All right, so I want to go back to an elite athlete taking part in a marathon. So this is a Scottish athlete, Callum Hawkins, who was taking part in a 2018 marathon on the Gold Coast of Australia. Now, a couple things to note. He's a Scottish athlete coming from a fairly cool climate, going to a very hot and humid climate, taking part in this marathon. He was doing great.
Real quick, Mark, sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Can you make that full screen? I think it might be easier to see.
Oh yeah, sure.
Cool.
Is that better?
I think that will work, yeah.
Sure. So Callum was doing great. He was out in the lead. He made a move and he was charging right ahead. But during that race, that temperature was getting up to 29 degrees, probably really rarely occurring in Scotland. So what ended up happening? His lead was approaching 2 minutes as he gets out there, and in my mind, I'm thinking this is probably not good. It's very hot, and heat it can be an issue for marathon runners. His coach was excited but concerned, as the article says. And what you see here is a picture at the end how Callum unfortunately suffered a heat stroke during that event. But his coach noticed as he was getting to that point, oh, I'm concerned, he's not running right. I see this wobble here. And I'll end this little example with what Callum said afterwards. I just wanted to keep pushing. I probably wasn't in the right state of mind to make the right decision. And oftentimes with our military folks, we find the same. They're trained to be ready. They're trained to solve a mission, to complete a mission, and to be good to go. And even though they may be feeling a little under the weather, they're not going to let the team down. They're going to succeed in what they're doing. So this sort of really motivates all the technologies that we're trying to bring to bear to solve exertional heat illness within the military setting. At USARM, we've developed using computational approaches taken from the robotics industry and the computer science industry to solve some long-standing problems. The first and underpinning technology is the estimated core temperature algorithm. So just from a simple heart rate monitor, we're able to estimate accurately core body temperature. And we can use this to manage the heat strain of individuals taking part in missions, in training, to manage the tempo of work, slow down, speed up, and move ahead. We also wanted to identify individuals who are actually going to under or actually succumb to an exertional heat illness, such as heat stroke. So we've been looking at accelerometry technologies and again, using machine learning techniques to learn the gait of an individual and learn when that individual starts to show that telltale wobble. And when you use these two technologies, estimated core temperature and gait instability, you can predict quite accurately when an individual is about to succumb to a heat stroke event and be able to prevent that, take them out of that event, and cool them down very rapidly, which is very needed for outcomes in that. Then the other examples of our technology, again, from our high-performance marathon runner, we have a couple of tools. One is the individualized heat acclimatization training tool. So again, it's using the estimated core temperature, but in a feedback loop to enable safe training to promote heat acclimatization. So you can go out, you can work at the appropriate rate to promote heat acclimatization over several days and lower your risk to heat injury in the end. And secondly, another technology that we have, which is a pacing technology, which trains individuals for an environment. So based again upon physiologic feedback. So what is your core temperature at this point in time? I know you have so far to run to complete your mission. It can pace you optimally to complete that as fast as you can, but yet maintaining safety so you don't succumb to exertional heat illnesses. And we've applied these to the training environment for soldiers and to they're useful in an operational environment. So I'd like to play a short video here that sort of introduces the technology in the military environment and and how it's being used today.
The Heat Injury Prevention System, or HIPS, is a new system to measure the risk of heat injury in warfighters during training. HIPS lets you work your people harder without worrying about heat injury. More effective training means more effective skills in operations. It gives you an additional tool to keep an eye on your people. HIPS measures skin temperature and heart rate, which are used to calculate estimated core temperature. It also measures movement, which helps calculate heat stroke risk. High core temperatures are predictive of heat injury. High temperatures and gait instability are predictive of heat stroke. They trigger alerts that are sent to the devices you and the medic carry. False negatives can kill people, so HIPS is biased towards false positives. You will get alerts on people who are fine, but you won't miss people who are at risk for heat injury. HIPS is not diagnostic. You and the medic will check individuals flagged by alerts and decide who needs to be pulled for rest or medical care. HIPS does not replace the buddy system or good leadership skills. It gives you another tool for monitoring your people, especially at night or when they are out of sight.
So once again, it's a real pleasure to be able to share the work we've been doing to prevent exertional heat illness in soldiers and how that technology can actually be used in the civilian world as well. So with that, that's my introduction done. I'll be glad to take your questions later on in this presentation. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Buller. That was really interesting and can't wait to learn more about the commercial applications. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Matthew Quinn, who is the Science Director at Army Telehealth and Advanced Technology Research Center, also known as, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. You say Tatrick? Okay, perfect. All right, take it away.
Patrick. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to share some slides and get started here. Hope everybody can see that. So, good afternoon. I'm Matt Quinn. I am the Science Director for the Telehealth and Advanced Technology Research Center, or TATRIC, at Fort Detrick, Maryland. TATRIC has a motto that we're forging the future by fusing data, humans, and machines into solutions that optimize warfighter performance and casualty care. So human performance is in our mission and in our motto. And I'd like to talk today about a project that really initiated in March when General Talley and the leadership at Mrdc came to us and said, how can you affect the COVID fight? What can you do? And preferably, look at projects that have applications in our core mission of supporting future military operational medicine and multi-domain operations. I joined Tatrick actually in March, so this was soon after I joined. I joined from an agency in the Department of Health and Human Services called HRSA, which runs the Federal Office of Rural Health Policy. And prior to that, I was at Intel Corporation as the managing director for healthcare and life sciences. And so, as we thought about this, we said there's a real big problem. There are no intensive care unit beds in many places across the country. So the blue are places with ICU beds, the orange without ICU, and the gray actually are places with no hospitals. And what we've learned from COVID, and I'm sorry to say this in places like Texas right now, is even places where there are a lot of ICU beds, we're running out. And setting up surge facilities, temporary facilities, field hospitals, convention centers, etc. But while it's possible to surge the number of places for people to go, it's very hard to surge critical care trained clinicians, the people who are necessary to manage those complex patients, to run the ventilators and other things. And so that really was the genesis of our problem that we were trying to address. So all good ideas come first with a acronym, and ours is NETSN, rhymes with Jetson, a National Emergency Telecritical Care Network. And this actually builds off of an emerging model that our lab director, Colonel and Dr. Jeremy Pamplin, had been working with as part of the Society of Critical Care Medicine, which is the intensivist care professional organization, as well as had been a part of broader disaster response ideas. We said disasters, including COVID, stress healthcare systems, the infrastructure, resources, and staff. And being able to support something from anywhere to anywhere represents an important component of a next generation NDMS, or National Disaster Medical System. And so how can we, as part of MRDC, catalyze this effort both in the private sector, but also with DoD funding and with lessons that we can apply more broadly to our domain? And we put together a program. We're actually in phase 1. As you can see, there are 2 main phases here. And we really said we need to start with a minimum viable telecritical care platform, something that is going to operate with minimal bandwidth and connectivity, basically operating off of mobile networks, cellular networks, 4G, and using organic devices that people have, meaning smartphones. And we need to build this into an ecosystem. So it can't just be a standalone technology if we want to get this, again, into the fight. We need to have the pieces actually work together. We need to start with individual platforms, and we need to have platforms working together. We also need to have this as part of, connected to and part of actual care delivery models, so that healthcare professionals and patients understand how this system for telecritical care works. Phase 2 of our project is building off of and scaling the 2 to 3 best minimum viable telecritical care platforms, and adding capabilities like capabilities at the point of need that replicate hospitals. So Dr. Bowler talked about building the algorithms and collecting the data from wearables and other devices to support situational awareness. That's really what we want to do as well. We want to capture data from medical devices, make that data work together, and then support capabilities like remote control and autonomy of those devices from a distance, and to do it securely. as well as to automate some of the resource and supply challenges around this. And so really that's the next step of this. Especially to support one region of the country or one health system or one group of providers supporting others. We need a platform for them to share information and to work together. And so that's the other half of phase 2, which is adding something that we call a dashboard operating system or a situational awareness architecture to this. And as part of the military and part of Military Research and Development Command, this is not something that we're going to roll out ourselves as an organization. We're really just trying to catalyze, demonstrate the art of the possible, mature some of these technologies, and then transition to both the civilian world, Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, for example, at the Department of Health and Human Services, and to military medicine. And so I wanted to highlight the role and importance of human performance in all of this. And this is really the question. We're trying to do something new. We're trying to deliver healthcare in different ways. And in the past couple of months, we've had an explosion of the amount of telehealth that probably has been delivered and also consumed by people. And understanding what works and what doesn't work is as important or more important than actually getting the electrons moving and working in a system like that. One of the other key principles of this, other than making sure that we're really trying to understand and meet the needs of the people in the proverbial foxhole, as General Talley would say, is introducing competition and making sure that we're radically inclusive, not just of large corporations with lots of capabilities, but we look far and wide for innovative and small and entrepreneurial companies and to build off of some of our past investments. And so in order to do this well and to do it quickly, we are working with something called MTech, or the Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium, which is an other transaction authority vehicle for this work. And so really in a matter of weeks, we were able to put out a solicitation, hold a proposers conference, and we ended up with over 600 participants in that, which was a record for MTech. They actually waived some of their participation agreements so that we could get more folks. We reached out far and wide, including folks from HHS and the clinical community, to help us screen proposals. We reviewed proposals, and we came up with 9 awardees. So that's one set of competition. The other set here is that we're really running this as 3 phases or 3 tasks. Rapid sprints. The first one 15 days, the second one 30 days, and the next one 45 days. We actually just completed the first 15-day sprint, where we've down selected the 9 teams, clinical and technical teams, down to 6. And then we'll down select after this next phase down to 2 or 3 and build from there. So each of those phases is a show me, don't tell me approach. And I'll get into some of the details of that in just a minute after I show you the teams that we initially funded. As you can see, we have quite a diverse group. And actually, most of them work exclusively in the civilian world, which is kind of new for us. Not to say that we can't learn from that. And some of them do work very closely with military medicine, either in this project or more broadly. But we were deliberate and intentional in including everybody from academic medical centers to academic organizations to small and entrepreneurial ones to bigger ones to Avera Health, which it works with the Indian Health Service and lots of rural providers. And so between each of those phases or each of those tasks, we conduct simulation-based assessment. And so this is actually a diagram of the use case and scenario that each of our performers platforms was used to simulate. And we worked with 3 different distant providers, and we did usability testing and task completion, both qualitative and quantitative research as part of each of these steps to inform which platforms would move on to the next phase and which ones ended there. It's a vital part, because if we do more of this, then we actually know how things work and how things don't work. I'll close in saying that there are lots of parallels between the care that we're trying to support for COVID and what's needed for multi-domain operational medical support. There's a lot going on in this slide, but again, we've been intentional and deliberate in thinking about how there is an interaction between these two. Something that was unusual about this acquisition is that usually in a RFP or a request for proposal, as in this one, you ask for more. In this one, we asked for less. We said, don't throw in everything, because in these scenarios, you're not going to be able to support it. Let's just start with that minimum viable platform, as we would in the military for MDO, and build from there. And that's been a challenge for some who are used to, more is better. So with that, I will finish my presentation. Here's my contact information, and happy to answer any questions as part of the rest of the presentation. I will stop presenting and go on mute now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. That was super, super interesting. I think at this point, we're going to bring back Dr. Stokes and Dr. Buller to answer any questions that the audience has. We've had a few folks from the live chat ask some questions, so we're going to propose those to you now. Let's go with this question to Dr. Buller. So I should disclose that, first of all, both of your presentations, all the presentations were really interesting. I was particularly interested in all of the fitness data that you're using to make determinations about, things like, is somebody in the process of having a heat emergency, heat stroke, that sort of thing. I know of a few. Everybody's got fitness tracking apps these days. There are even gyms that are tracking fitness and fitness data for outcomes. We've seen through Capital Factory a lot of companies that are building those solutions in the private sector, in the commercial space, and then they're transitioning them to governments, DoD or other government agency solutions. How do you foresee, what's your vision for the transition from government to the commercial space? And let's start with you, Dr. Buller, but I'd love to hear from all of you guys what your thoughts are there.
So I think for our work, we very much see a commercial application. And one of the mechanisms that we use is the Cooperative Research and Development Agreement between our research institute and commercial companies, or even universities. And this allows us to collaborate, to share data, to tailor the algorithms to that commercial sector, to that commercial space. And so that really is how we like to work, is to partner with a company and to be able to get our algorithms out and get them tested and get them trialed out in the commercial space.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt or Dr. Stokes, do you have a response to that question?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
So as I showed in the slide, the phase 2 is adding device interoperability and remote and closed loop control to nets and capabilities. And we can't, especially in the civilian world, have, specify which device will be available or which wearable or any of those other things. And so it's perhaps less sexy, but there's a lot of standards work that needs to be done to support plug and play technologies. And again, as a role as a catalyst that says, how can we bring together the important stakeholders, the regulators like FDA, the commercial entities, many of them small and entrepreneurial, and the healthcare providers, including the Defense Health Agency or DHA, who want to see these interoperable technologies put in place. Mm-hmm. Just the pace of what we're trying to affect here, and that people don't want to get COVID by setting things up right in a COVID environment, means that we can't do custom one-off integration for devices out there. We need to have a standard that supports plug and play of devices in an environment, and we need to harmonize and standardize where we can. At the same time, we want there to be competition in places where there's value, that there's competition. This is really disruptive, and the second half of our project is really going to try to catalyze some of those activities.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I wonder who is it that sets those standards? How do you guys have like just a big conference where you all get together and say these are the interoperability standards?
So in a former life, I worked at a place called NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And actually, NIST does not set standards. And my favorite phrase there is that standards become standards when people use them.
Okay.
Right. And if there's a problem to solve, and it's a problem that requires multiple stakeholders working together, that's a good place for standards to emerge or to come about. You see standards in everyday way, in everyday life. There's a place at the NIST Museum in Gaithersburg, Maryland, that talks about there was a great fire at the turn of the century in Baltimore, and all of these fire departments showed up, and none of them had standardized the size of the pipe to put on the fire hydrant. And so they were there and just couldn't help. That's a great example. The same is true of the data that comes out of medical devices and what's needed for making them work together or share, but also the data that's needed for closed loop control and some of these other higher functions that have applications, as I showed, in multi-domain operations. Yeah. It really comes down to helping people work at the very top or even beyond their license. In healthcare, it's going to be people in, staffing a COVID facility. In multi-domain operations, it's that combat medic who's not a doctor.
Right. So Dr. Stokes, I want to go to you at this next question. You mentioned open innovation models. And I think as we're talking about interoperability and those sorts of things, I wonder if you could expand on that and tell us more what those models look like and how they're kind of transforming the space.
Right, so there are several models already kind of existing, again, going to DIU, again, where they're focused on the higher TRLs and acquiring those technologies out in the innovation community, startup community, what have you, and quickly transitioning those to the field. Again, one model, AFWorks is another model. Again, our ARL open campuses, where we've been doing for many years, actually embedding in universities, is another model. Just to present kind of, again, we're currently brainstorming, very conceptual stage, on a new model called, what we're focusing on, how can we build this consortium model and focus more on portfolio engagement, just like the private investment community does. And again, working a little bit more in lockstep. So that's still in the development phase. And again, we're working across ARL with several folks and still getting buy-in and shaping what that's going to look like. So that's just another model. Again, there's just so many different open innovation models at this point that are happening, which is so great. And again, I think as General Talley mentioned as well, how do we streamline those processes a little bit more? So we're realizing the importance of open innovation, and we're engaging in these communities, but we still have some work to do to streamline those processes. And in my personal opinion, the more we can work together across, across the defense sections and in other agencies, the better that we can engage in these communities in a streamlined fashion.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have to imagine that the kinds of technologies that you're seeing is changing based on the ways in which you're able to go out and procure them and fund them and cultivate them along that pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, as I mentioned in the opening remarks, where we can not only obviously acquire and invest in some of those cutting edge technologies, but where we can add some of the rigorous science that we also do in the service labs, where we can pair some of that. And again, as opposed to maybe developing, a technology in-house and testing it very rigorously on the human sciences, for example, I focus on, again, the social dynamics of those interactions. So again, more on the cognitive side and again, the social emotional side of how we're interacting with these technologies and the impacts that they can have. So again, what are some of these technologies, especially on AI, that are coming out where it's heavily involved in human interaction? So not only on the human potential and the cognitive potential, again, from my perspective and my technical background, what are those social dynamics that we're seeing unintended consequences of? We've all seen at this point, right, with a lot of the commercial technologies out there, and especially with our youth growing up. So again, streamlining where we can work with those.
Absolutely. Well, I'm also interested to learn more. Dr. Buller, you talked about, obviously the technology, the algorithms that you're developing is about identifying when there is an action event, somebody is falling ill with a heat stroke. If that is to happen, what are the kinds of measures that you're looking at or interventions to get them back to the mission?
Yeah, I'll give the example. We've been working with the 75th Ranger Regiment down at Fort Benning in Georgia in collaboration with their Markham Army Community Hospital. So we've sort of got the whole gamut of, okay, somebody's now suffering a heat stroke. So first off, the training cadre will take them out of the particular event that they're taking part in. Immediately, they will be cooled using ice sheets. So they'll have giant coolers of ice with sheets ready to go, place that over them, because one of the critical things is to get that person cool. They'll be taking temperatures. At this time, a call has gone out to the ambulance, which usually arrives in 5 to 10 minutes on that base. Now, depending upon the severity, it could mean that they're discharged that day, or they could be in hospital for a number of days. Heat stroke can be very serious, can lead to death even. The critical part is cooling them quickly. Alongside of that, there are also a number of other incidents of heat exhaustion and less life-threatening. So there's a whole range of outcomes. The quicker you're able to cool that individual and prevent high core body temperatures and sort of a shock response to that body, the better the outcome is for bringing that person back. One example of that variability is in collaboration with UK on a very rigorous course. We had 2 heat strokes during one event. One individual came back a month later to complete that same criterion event and succeeded, got through it well. The other person had to be discharged from the military.
Wow.
So.
And so I know you mentioned that pacing algorithm, and I've run a couple of marathons. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a marathoner, nor do I think I was ever even approaching the level of heat exhaustion, let alone heat stroke. But is this something that this technology, have you looked at marathon running or distance running as a hobby and using that kind of like pacing algorithm? I would imagine top athletes could really benefit from that.
So where we're looking to, and we're looking over this next year to run a series of lab and field studies to really prove out the algorithms in a number of different settings. But it works from the lab studies that we've done. It tends to bring the person up to the level of an expert. So there's a sort of optimal pace that you can adopt for given the environment and temperature and your skill and ability. And the algorithm will pace you at that optimal pace. And we don't do better than the experts, but we can bring somebody that's not an expert up to that level. So bringing this out for sort of the novice runner to improve and train them so they can understand their physiologic feedback, where we have monitors doing that, if they learn that feedback themselves, can probably better pace themselves. And for the Callum Hawkins, who I highlighted in a couple of slides to motivate, my feeling is, as he went from that cool climate where he's used to training, he was just applying that cool running performance model that he'd learned in that hot environment. And I think this physiologic feedback can help in that situation to pace in this new environment to how his physiology is really responding.
Really interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, if you're training in an environment that's different where you're going to go, say run like a marathon somewhere else, that could be really, really useful. This next question is for Matt, and this may actually be for everybody, and we can kind of conclude with this. We're almost out of time here, but for entrepreneurs who are tuning in or interested in getting involved, what are the kind of like requirements? I know Dr. Stokes, you talked about technology readiness levels. What are like the thresholds or requirements for validating and testing this kind of relevant technology or standards, as we talked about before, Matt? And Matt, why don't you kick us off? What should your advice to an entrepreneur who's looking to get in the game?
Well, I think that the best advice I can provide is to find a problem, a real world problem, and try to solve it. I took part in the epic office hours the other day. And I met some just amazing folks who are solving problems that I understood and didn't understand. One of them is looking at some of the problems of 5G and not having line of sight, and some really interesting software-based approaches to support use of 5G in places where that are rural. Great. And I said, wow, there's some applicability there for what we're doing. There's some applicability for MDO, et cetera. The hardest thing, I think, and as somebody who's worked in the government and also tried to work with the government, is just understanding and making sense of opportunities that are out there. And for small companies to track all of this and chase all of this is really difficult. And so what we can do as the government to both use vehicles that are less onerous, like OTAs and MTech, but also to get the word out, to tell people what's out there. And the social media platforms like LinkedIn, there's something called Health 2.0, and we advertised and promoted this on that, and also just word of mouth. So it's not just the usual suspects.
Sure.
So long story.
And I really appreciate you guys being here for the panel. I know that we're going to actually move into our networking segment next. So I want to thank you all so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much.